All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. Hopefully we'll have a few more people filter in, as these meetings are best, especially in breakout sessions, when we have a good, robust set of group. Tonight is the third of our introductory comprehensive plan meetings. This one is going to be focused on housing. Like I have promised in the past meetings, this one will be a lot less of me and a lot more of other people, which a number of folks should probably rejoice about. So yeah, this will be a big component of Melissa Shoemake, who will be working on this presentation, but I just want to lay out a couple of introductions and we'll move forward. Next slide. So the meeting flow is that we are, like our past presentations, we're going to do a brief presentation. We're going to talk about housing, what the existing condition of housing is in Kitsap County, both housing affordability and affordable housing, two entirely different concepts. We're going to talk about housing types, which is largely beyond single family and multifamily. There's going to be conversations about missing middle housing. The county role in housing, that is one component. We are not a housing authority, but we do have a lot of opportunities to incentivize this development. And we'll also talk about what the current 2016 comprehensive plan includes. This is a Zoom meeting. It isn't a webinar, so anybody who is not speaking, please keep your mic muted. It will help with background noise so everyone can hear. After the presentation, we're going to go into breakout groups. All these breakout groups are going to have the same set of questions, so you're going to be randomly selected to go into one group or another. And we're going to run you through a set of questions about the county's role in housing, what types of housing stock are missing, as well as a number of other questions that we're really interested in the public's thoughts on things. Then lastly, if you have any technical related questions that aren't your computer based, please contact Alex Jarrett at ajarrett@kitsap.gov, and she can help you again if it's a Zoom related problem versus a Windows update problem. We don't have that kind of tech support. Next slide. So just as kind of a reminder, Kitsap County does this comprehensive plan and under a series of state, regional, and local mandates. This ranges from the Growth Management Act. The Growth Management Act is the state statute that requires certain planning concepts for all local jurisdictions, especially in the central Puget Sound region. Oh, actually, GMA is, I apologize, is nearly statewide. Then you have Vision 2050, which is our regional plan. It has a number of housing related goals in both housing affordability and affordable housing. Vision 2050 is overseen by the Puget Sound Regional Council and is made up of representatives from Kitsap, Snohomish, King, and Pierce counties. We intend to be consistent with these multi-county planning policies as we do all act as one region, and our housing affordability crisis definitely shows that. And then we have our countywide planning policies. So moving down a level, our countywide planning policies are overseen by the Kitsap Regional Coordinating Council, which includes Kitsap County, all of its cities, tribes, and a couple of ports participate. And there are a number of housing strategies located in that document that we are working with. That all leads down to the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan is what Kitsap must ensure we are working towards in our local unincorporated portions of Kitsap County. So our comprehensive plan doesn't necessarily apply to the cities, but we do coordinate closely with them through the countywide planning policies, which again is that set of goals above the comprehensive plan. So with that, I'm going to turn this presentation over to Melissa to talk about housing in Kitsap County. Take it away, Melissa.
Thanks, Eric. So I want to start with what is actually required by the GMA for our housing element. There's a number of different things that the GMA requires of us. Just like the overall GMA, where certain elements can seem to be like they are in juxtaposition with each other, some of the housing elements requirements are also somewhat to some extent. So, and these are much less jargon than what's actually in the GMA. These are very, very slimmed down versions of what's actually in that. So that includes maintaining the character of existing residential neighborhoods, doing a housing needs inventory. So that means figuring out what we have and figuring out where the gaps are, preserving, improving, and developing housing, ensuring that we have sufficient land capacity. So we do that through the land capacity analysis and the buildable lands report that just got completed last year. We need to document the needs and gaps to increasing housing availability. We also need to ensure that there is housing near employment opportunities. We're supposed to consider the role of ADUs in meeting housing goals. We are, and this is new from House Bill 2020, required to identify and address local policies and regulations that have racially disparate impacts. And we are also supposed to identify and address the risks and causes of displacement. And again, as I mentioned, the consideration of the buildable lands report, and within that, the identified reasonable measures. Reasonable measures talk about how can we get closer to what our requirements are by changing things. So I have a survey question. How recently have you shopped for housing in Kitsap County? And that's either if you were looking to rent or to buy. Oh, Alex, this was supposed to be a timed question.
Melissa, I can stop it once we
Yeah.
have most of the participants voting. I can see from this side.
Well, no, I mean, the answers are not the right answers.
Oh, I can fix that. Go ahead and end this poll and see if I can fix that, okay?
Yeah, thank you. Sorry about that, folks. Okay, let's see if we can come back to that one after we regroup after the discussion questions. So what are we looking at currently for housing in Kitsap County? These numbers are largely approximate and they're from a variety of sources, including Zillow's data portal, the University of Washington has a real estate program with some good data. Our Kitsap County and Bremerton 2020 Affordable Housing Report and Recommendation, and our 2021 Buildable Lands Report, as I mentioned. So currently, there are approximately 118,000 housing units in the county. Of those, approximately 74% are detached housing. It varies throughout the county by different jurisdiction and different UGA, but there's approximately 2.23 people per household in the county. Over the past year, so basically all of 2022, the average rent, and this is apartments all the way through single family homes that are available for rent, is $2,000 a month. And the median home sale price, so again, median is what is the middle number, not the average, is $575,000. We also know that we need approximately 30,000 new housing units to accommodate our population growth by 2024 over our planning period. So you'll hear people talk about affordable housing and housing affordability. Often people use those somewhat interchangeably. They're not interchangeable. So housing affordability is applicable to everyone. The goal is that your household spends no more than a third of the net income on housing expenses. And affordable housing is for a specific defined income bracket based on a percentage of the area median income and based on family size. So the 2022 area median income for Kitsap County is $102,500. The different income brackets are defined as a percentage of AMI, right? And so less than 30% of AMI is very, very low income. For a one-person household, that's just under $31,000 a year. For the 31% to 50% of AMI, that number is definitely not right. I think it must have been a 5, not a 2. Below $51,250. And that's low income. 51% to 80% is going to be below $82,000. And 81 to 120% is considered to be basically at median. And so that's income of $123,000. So based on the data from the previous slide, if you were to seek a mortgage, a 30-year fixed rate, today's rate at 6.526%, at the median sale price that I mentioned of $575,000 with 10% down, which is $60,000, your monthly payment would be $4,100, which works out to be, if it was going to be affordable for a household, a yearly salary of needing $147,600. That's 144% of AMI. So we have a housing affordability issue as well as a housing availability issue, and as well as having a lack of affordable housing for the lower income brackets. So there are multiple different housing types, as Eric mentioned. You know, there's obviously your single family homes, either on large lots or kind of typical suburban lots. Those are going to be for folks who are at 100% of AMI or larger, simply based on what land costs are, what construction costs are, and the size of those homes typically. So then what we often talk about as missing middle is small lot, single family homes, duplexes, triplexes, and townhomes. Those are going to be affordable to folks who are at about 80% of AMI or more. And then we have kind of two different things of apartment complexes, as well as higher density townhomes and condominiums, so that you also have some ownership opportunities as well as renting. And so apartments and condominiums typically are going to be at 50% of AMI or greater. They are both good potential to serve lower income levels if there's a public subsidy available. You've probably seen this graphic before if you've been in any kind of housing meeting, but these are some additional examples of missing middle housing. So you can have duplexes that are either side by side or stacked, fourplex that is stacked, courtyard apartments, so that they're basically 3 wings of a building surrounding a courtyard, cottage housing, so can be either rented or owned depending on the structure. And those are going to be usually small, under 1,000 square feet, individual houses. Townhomes, obviously, basically a row house, and then smaller multiplexes, triplexes, again, can be either stacked or side by side. And then also live workspace are also considered to be missing middle housing. So the county's role, as Eric mentioned, we are not necessarily a housing provider, but we have impacts on how housing is developed. So obviously the big one right now is, what does our housing element actually say? From that, our development regulations are implementing what the housing element says. So currently we have development regulations. They'll be getting updated alongside this comprehensive plan process. The county does receive some grant funds. So that's Community Development Block Grant, as well as some homelessness funds. We do help support the Housing Authority. The Board of Commissioners are all on the board of the Housing Authority. There are other things that we can do, such as incentivizing diverse housing type production, like on the previous 2 slides, different kinds of housing types than what we've typically seen, and also incentivize affordable housing. So this is a different survey question. Would you support the county incentivizing the development of affordable housing?
I hope this one is correct, Melissa, but I also have the last one ready whenever you are.
Awesome, great, thank you. Yes, this one is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Give it a couple more seconds. Looks like there's still 4 people who haven't answered. Okay, thanks, folks. So almost everyone said that they would support the county incentivizing the development of affordable housing. This is somewhat of a self-selective question, since folks who are showing up to a meeting about housing are probably going to be concerned about housing, but it's still useful information for us to have. And then Alex said we had a redo of the previous question about when was the last time that you had shopped for housing. give it a couple more seconds. Looks like there's still 3 folks who haven't answered. Okay. So obviously a fair amount of variety. For the folks that have shopped in the past month, the last 6 months, or the last year, they know how volatile the market is. I was one of you, I bought my home last year. So obviously things have changed pretty drastically, especially for those of you who last had to look longer than 5 years ago. So thanks for sharing that too. That is also useful information for us to have. Okay, so that all brings us to, what does the current comprehensive plan say? We have goals and policies. I've just grabbed the policies to try and keep this brief. Each one of these policies has supporting goals that go along with it, but they're not included in the presentation. So the policies are: homelessness in Kitsap County should be rare, brief, and one time. That we need to increase affordable housing units, ensure a broad range of housing types, preserve existing affordable housing, ensure that all people have fair and equal access to housing and services, increase connections to social services, and then integrate affordable housing and services with transportation, workforce development, and economic development. One thing I will say about these policies is, we intend to try to move forward with some of the same goals and policies. However, the requirement that I mentioned from the update to the GMA about racially disparate impacts and displacement issues will mean that there will be some language changes to a large number of our goals and policies to comply with that. And then along with the goals and policies, we have strategies about how we're going to accomplish those goals and policies. So those include conduct an affordable housing inventory. That was done back when the county and Bremerton collaborated on the affordable housing report and recommendation. Implement effective regulatory tools and incentives. This has been partially accomplished with the zoning use table update that was adopted earlier this year. There were certainly some changes to what housing types were allowed where. There's certainly a lot more room to go on that front as well. Develop and expand financial resources. Again, this is certainly a partial, the 1/10 of 1% of the sales tax that can be used for affordable housing. That was implemented in April, and we've also been using the excise tax on housing transactions to build that housing fund for the county as well. Implement the homeless housing plan. That was adopted in 2019. And then COVID hit and the homeless response had to shift gears. I do know that they're planning an update to that plan for 2023. Analyze barriers to fair housing is something that is still on our to-do list. So that will probably carry over to this next comprehensive plan. And develop and implement a fair housing plan. And that would be the same thing. So really brief overview. Hopefully that was still useful for you. And now we have breakout groups where we have a set of questions that we'd like to pick your brains about. And we will have Alex separate folks into rooms.
Melissa, it looks like we have 20 minus the 5 of us, 24 people. Do you want 2 rooms or do you want
2 rooms? 2 rooms sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
I'm gonna look sharp.
If you're still here in the main room, you should have received a message asking you to join a breakout room, and I believe you have to agree. Ed, do you need help moving over?
I'm just hanging in. You have to
Okay.
tell me what to do, Alex. I'm not sure.
You should have received a message asking you to join a breakout room.
Okay.
Look at your phone.
Hopefully, no, everyone's not listening to this.
Nope, just you, me, and then there's one other
So-
person on here.
What? No, I'm not going to take time to bother you because you need to get moving. What break? Where am I looking for this message?
I'm not sure on a phone, Ed. I've never.
Okay. All right.
um,
Just move forward and I'll figure it out. And thank you, Alex.
You're welcome. I'm trying to see if I can move you. Jean,
Don't worry about it. Just take care of everyone else.
okay, I'm gonna try and talk to Jean. Do you need assistance? Got one other person that's still in the main room.
I'm gonna peel off, Alex.
Okay, Ed, you can always join back for the conclusion in 45 minutes if you like.
45 minutes for the conclusion. Thank you,
Yeah.
Alex.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Jean? We are just waiting for everybody to make their way back to the main room.
Thank you, Alex. Jim, you ready to share? Oh, you're muted.
Yes, I am, if we're ready. Let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen.
Melissa, are you ready? Let's see, Melissa. Or Colin? If you're
So,
Colin, you're muted. And
About
Melissa.
that, yeah, what was Jim about to? Go ahead.
yeah, can you see my screen?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Kenny,
so some of
can you
the-
give me just a second first. Because our group only just wrapped up. I don't know if you guys did any sort of introduction. We're gonna just go through what the two groups had to say, and all of the notes will get combined and they'll be on the website tomorrow as well. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, so some of the things we talked about, strategies for infill residential development, some of the things that we might be able to do, or some strategies might be to relax stormwater regulations, parking regulations, open space and lot size. Then there's also, it was noted that there are some space limitations and setbacks are part of that, as well as open space. Strategies to encourage affordable housing. There are front-end incentives that are needed rather than on the back end, such as lower fees, less time for permitting and construction. Use local developers, small scale, that are invested in the community, rather than some developers that are out of town and just here to build and leave. Increased density in UGAs and landmarks. Some of the housing opportunities that are missing in Kitsap: smaller housing under 1,000 square feet, different types of structures like straw homes, not just standard spec housing. So think outside the box a little bit. Smaller homes, townhouses, senior housing, single level housing for seniors, or at least buildings with elevators and the homes on a single level. Workforce housing and co-housing options. Some of the difficult obstacles to building in Kitsap were building community around affordable housing. So building that community around that type of housing. Diversity in housing affordability, not all in one place. How to change existing neighborhoods into more diverse communities. Preservation of the environment and the communities themselves by building responsibly. Displacement of affordable housing options as we redevelop. Downsizing options. So if someone's living in a 5-bedroom home and they want to downsize to a condo, then having those options available would be good. Land without critical areas is scarce, so there's a need to upzone more land that is buildable. Creative solutions that are community driven. Single family mindset needs to change, and cost and time of permitting again. Kinds of housing Kitsap should be promoting: higher density near transit, flexibility and increased market demand for alternative housing types. Not sure I got that one under the right question, but got it in there. Missing middle housing and housing that allows you to live and work in the same community. In areas where densities may increase, what urban features would make those more desirable to live in? Green space, shopping opportunities. And where in Kitsap is best suited for the missing middle housing? In UGAs, but there needs to be sewer and other infrastructure in place to do that. I think that pretty well captured the gist of our conversation. Did I miss anything, anyone, or misrepresent anything?
Sounds good to me, Jim. Thank you.
Great. Well, if there's nothing more from Jim and Kirby's group, I can go ahead and share some of the things that were discussed in the second group. I will share my screen as well. Can everyone see that? Oh, sorry about that. Try again. Okay. Great. And so these are, and we had a lot of really good ideas and input. I know Melissa has notes as well, so forgive me if I missed anything, or feel free to add it at the end. So the first question is, what strategies and incentives would you like to see used to encourage infill residential housing or residential development? One of the things for infill development that's difficult is the permitting fees and associated costs. So looking at those specifically as it relates to infill housing. Encouraging different size homes. So having the availability of studios, single level homes and things like that.
Colin,
Can't see your
we
screen
lost your
now.
screen.
We lost the screen.
My
There we go.
apologies. The problem with having the two screens. Yeah, different size homes. Another idea that was brought up that's been used in other jurisdictions, I don't believe it's been used in Kitsap before, is pre-approved plans. So those are plans that have a building and safety review, perhaps, or have just a full review, and then can be reproduced and used on other lots, sometimes for a lower fee. We talked a little bit about property tax ideas. In Texas, for example, there are places where people build tiny homes on lots, and as an incentive to do that, they have an agreement not to increase their tax bill for a certain amount of years or until it changes ownership. That may not be something that is possible in Washington State, but there are ideas like that out there for tax assessments and tax incentives as well, generally. We talked about sustainable building methods and how those are sparse in terms of how they are approved and that they're difficult to approve. So it could be helpful to allow those, and that's also important for issues such as climate change. So we should look at areas that are already ahead of the curve. Is Kitsap behind on this in terms of other sustainable materials or building methods? Second question is, what strategies and incentives would you like to see for encouraging affordable housing development? A little different from infill residential development. For affordable housing development, talked about providing subsidies to that type of development, or even having the county actually build some of that housing itself. For incentivizing affordable housing, that could be smaller homes and not and actually different types of homes that have potentially shared facilities, cooperative areas or shared kitchens, things like that. One idea is inclusionary housing. You may have seen that in other jurisdictions as well. That's actually where permits themselves are conditioned to have a certain amount of affordable housing units. There is quite a few suggestions about incentivizing mother-in-law apartments, not just detached, but also attached, and making it easy to, throw up a wall or a door and put in a kitchenette, those kind of things to provide that kind of housing. There's some talk as well about the challenge of a lot of homes being second homes or investment homes and what impact that might have on our housing stock and the availability of affordable housing as well. Specifically looking at Kitsap and if that's an issue in Kitsap. And then just making it easier for single family homes to redevelop into duplexes, also options for Habitat for Humanity has options for self-building and things of that nature. The next question was, what housing opportunities and types are missing in Kitsap? I have one note here, maybe Melissa has another, but just that housing that uses clean energy. It's difficult to understand the requirements sometimes. Need to understand the federal level and what can be done at the local level, things like that. The next question was, what are the most difficult obstacles to building housing in Kitsap? Of course, the cost of the building materials themselves, permitting and things like that. Also, the reaction of the community to not just new development, but potentially innovative development, new housing types and things like that can be a barrier. So overcoming some of that reaction from the community. Another idea for avoiding obstacles to building housing is that housing that is affordable, sometimes these things, permitting issues or things are not timely is an issue. So affordable housing potentially getting bumped to the front of the line. Next question, what kinds of housing should Kitsap be promoting and where? having transit available near affordable housing is important because that should be in the equation of what's affordable is how expensive is that person's transportation, as well as access to trails. So anything other than just needing to use a car to get around, access to transit and access to trails is important, specifically around affordable housing. Next was, in areas where those densities do increase, what urban features would make those areas more desirable to live in? Again, access to trails and parks is seen as very important. Keeping trees, or whether it's new trees like street trees, things like that, are important in dense areas. Along those lines, community gardens and pea patches. Important to livability is also access to services and grocery stores, access to gathering spaces like libraries and cafes. And the point was brought up about pedestrian-only streets, or just streets that are aware that if we have gathering spaces, that they should be pleasant to be in, where you can go and talk and read and have it not be noisy and things like that. Another thing is there are areas with very large parking lots, so those lots can be broken up with more vegetation or redeveloped, and at the same time being mindful of having accessible parking for developments. And then again, with that last question, this is kind of where we ended up, where should CASAP help protect and preserve existing housing stock? Again, talking about looking at second homes, investment properties, Airbnbs, things of that nature. And that's kind of where we got kicked back into the regular meeting. So, but Melissa, feel free to add anything, but that was kind of the gist of our conversation.
No, I think that mostly covered it. So thank you everyone so much for coming out tonight. Our next comp plan meeting is October 11th. That is the that's tonight. The environment and climate change meeting. So be sure to show up for that, tell your friends. We'll see you then. Have a great rest of your night. Thank you.